My dad took a day-long break from the trail in San Diego thanks to my grandparents. San Diego got battered by the storm too. This boat busted free from its mooring in the storm and ran ashore, but San Diego got no snow and the timeshare was warm and dry. The next day my grandparents dropped him back off at mile 52. The area looked very different. It got over a foot of snow. My dad had to walk 8 miles to get below the snow line. It's hard to keep dry feet while walking in the snow with trail runners. He never got trench foot, but his foot bottoms got awfully pruny. Unfortunately, he missed a trail turn, which should have been obvious, and added 0.8 miles to his travels. He was considering a 25-mile day followed by a night at Julian, but the grade to Julian was closed due to storm damage, so he camped at mile 74. After his sad tent setup, he was pretty proud of this. It really helps not to be exhausted and working in the light. Unfortunately, it was windy that first night back and didn't put any rocks on his stakes. So around midnight, a structurally important stake was catapulted away and the whole tent collapsed. A few miles after camp breakdown, he reached Scissors Crossing where he got his first trail magic, a non-alcoholic beer which went great with his trail bar interview. While he was hiking down to lower elevations, he found a GPS tracker. It was powered off, so he powered it on and turned on tracking so the owner or the owner's loved ones could come and find it. But he didn't need to wait that long. He came to a large group about 90 minutes later. One of their number, Onward, was the owner. She was very happy to get it back. He topped off his water before reaching his dry camp at mile 95 at the biggest water cache he's ever seen. It had 3 giant pallets of gallon water bottles. The water cache at mile 91 had a trail log, so he signed it. Another night, another tent set up. All but one stake got a rock. In the middle of the night, whenever the tent was hit by a big gust of wind, he could hear rocks raise up and settle back down. All the morning, all the stakes stayed in the ground except for the one without a rock. Sheesh. This day, day 7, he reached mile 100. After mile 100, he came to the Montezuma Valley Road crossing and his second trail magic, so he had something cold and tasty to go with his trail pad tie. The section of trail between mile 100 and Warner Springs was just giant pasture after giant pasture with small hills separating them, so the miles went by fast. At Warner Springs, he got a soda and a sausage sandwich at the gas station. It was nice to feel normal for a minute. After a quick road walk, he was back on the trail again. He was amused by an Adopt a Trail maintenance sign right in front of the fallen tree blocking the trail. He was expecting to get to camp around 5, but the trail had other plans. The trail paralleled a creek called Agua Caliente. Although it is not warm, it feeds into a warmer hot springs and hence the name. Anyway, he had to cross the creek a half dozen times before reaching camp at mile 114. Each time he took off his shoes, put on his sandals, hung his shoes around his neck, and with the aid of a walking stick crossed the creek that had been swollen by all the storms. He had to dry his feet before putting his shoes back on and continuing. You can tell how swollen the creek is by its color. The creek is eroding its banks, causing them to take on the color of the Willy Wonka's river. All those creeks crossing delayed him 40 minutes. But he had plenty of time for a nice dinner and the ability to put his tent up in the light. Every stake got a rock, but the wind wasn't bad in the creek's little valley. In the morning, he somehow forgot his entire stake bag. He wouldn't discover this fact until he got to camp that night. The stake drama is real. His first creek crossing in the morning was his last Agua Caliente crossing. A couple walked up while he was going through the arduous process of preparing to cross. Instead of stopping, the couple just walked right through. They had mid-thigh-high water boots and good tread that acted like gaiters to connect to their waterproof pants. Sick. When he got to a higher altitude where he could see the valley leading into Julian, it was filled with tule fog, and the fog acted like a wave rolling over the hills. He saw a glider port on the map, and sure enough, he spotted a glider being towed up to altitude. His first view of Mount San Jacinto filled him with awe and dread. Snow again. In the snow, he hit a particularly bad stretch of trail. The trail was full of large rocks and had a 45-degree cantor. Bushes encroached both sides. On the side of the mountain, and was covered with snow. So, of course, he took a tumble but stayed on the trail. He injured his knee, but it wasn't bad. He got out of the snow and down to lower elevations, but of course he had no stakes, so it was fortunate that it wasn't windy. He put up his tent with one stake spare, a pin, and a bunch of sticks. Because there was no wind, his tent was covered with frost. When he shook it off, he powdered the trail with snow. As he was working his way to mile 151 in his pickup, he came to some wildflowers. All of those storms had an upside, I guess. Snake count 0, trail stops checklist, scissors crossing check, but not Julian, obviously. Warner Springs check, Paradise Cafe check. My grandparents had lunch with my dad at the cafe. The burger was not underrated. Would recommend.